Welcome to the Cash Theater training video, which will cover such topics as eligibility, the general guidelines, and the priority criteria. So Cash Theater is open to Bay Area theater artists and small organizations that create and perform theater. Bay Area includes all of Theater Bay Area's Northern California service regions, which include San Francisco, Alameda, Contra Costa, Santa Clara, San Mateo, Santa Cruz, Monterey, Marin, Napa, Sonoma, and Solano counties. This application, again, is only for theater projects. All Cash Theater applicants will need to be one of the following types of yearly members of Theater Bay Area, either an individual, also known as an insider member, an associate member, or a company member. To apply as an organization, you don't have to be incorporated, you don't have to be fiscally sponsored, you just have to have a overall budget of under $100,000 in your most recently completed fiscal year, and be able to document at least 2 professionally oriented works that were presented publicly in the last 2 years from the application deadline. Previously documented works can include performances, they can include staged readings or workshops as long as they were publicly performed. This work is meant to be documented on the resume that you submit with your application. Artists must have a yearly individual membership with Theater Bay Area, be at least 18 years old, already working in the art form of the proposed project, and be able to document at least 1 professionally oriented work that was presented publicly in the last 2 years from the application deadline, again documented on the resume that you submit with your application. Artists can apply either as an individual or as a collaborative team. A collaborative team consists of 2 or more artists who are applying together to support work that all members of the team will create together. Collaborative teams should still include documentation of at least 1 professionally oriented production that was presented publicly in the last 2 years that involved all members of the team, thus meeting the eligibility for an individual artist. For the purposes of Cash, a collaborative team isn't meant to imply everyone who might be working on your project. These are the core artists who are involved in generating the work. Side note, you should keep in mind that cash grants are taxable. So once you're granted, we'll be happy to cut a check to whomever you would like, but just be aware that whoever this is will be reported to the IRS as having received funding from us, so they will be assuming the tax liability. So some of the disclaimers. So no applications from students or Cash Theater personnel, or from organizations that are primarily presenters, performance venues, non-professional, pastime hobby companies, or arts education programs. The panel is empowered to interpret each of these designations as they see them. So here are some common notes on how panels have reacted to these terms in the past. Students, generally meant to include those who are currently enrolled in an undergraduate degree program, generally in the field in which they are applying. Presenters, the applicant doesn't have an artistic voice in the project. They are simply presenting the work of others without any curation or artistic input in the project. Performance venues are generally a strictly rental facility. Non-professional pastime hobby companies. First off, this means what it means to you. If you consider yourself to be professionally oriented, you should consider applying. It's been my experience that generally professional orientation comes across through the entirety of your application, your resume, your work sample, how you approach your budget. It is not meant to imply that there needs to be an association with a professional union. It's not meant to imply pay scale for the participants. And it doesn't mean that the project can't include some non-professionals in some artistic capacity. For instance, if you're incorporating a particular community group in your work, that's perfectly reasonable. You should still consider applying. Generally speaking, the non-professionals shouldn't be the direct recipient of the grant itself. Arts education programs. This means that the organization cannot primarily exist in order to provide arts education opportunities. It doesn't mean that there can't be an arts education component to your work in general or your project. It's just that it can't be the primary focus of the application. It also doesn't mean that your project can't involve students in some way. But again, generally speaking, students should not be the direct recipient of the grant. If you feel like there are items in here that might give the panel cause, give them reason for discussion, or distract from your work, my suggestion is that you approach this directly in your letter. It gives you the chance to explain how you feel that you meet this guideline. For example, a note on your resume might say, while you are a student, you're pursuing a degree in another field. Or if you're applying as an organization and perhaps you have the words community theater in the name of your organization, it's better to address it directly in your letter, as in how you are professionally oriented, so that way the panel is perhaps not distracted. So applicants can only submit one proposal per round. Also, members of the panel pool cannot submit into any round in which they're serving on a panel. Once you're granted, you can apply again, but you have to sit out at least one round and complete a simple self-evaluation that tells us how the project went that you were funded for. Requests for funding to retire debts from current or past performances are discouraged. Current can be a little bit of a moving target because the panels could interpret past to be from when you wrote the application, it could be from the deadline, it could be from when they met to discuss the applications. So my general suggestion to you is that given that awards will be announced within 7 weeks of the deadline, that you try to apply for something that's going to be clearly beyond at least 7 weeks past the deadline, just to avoid the question from the panel. So grants support both artistic and capacity projects. Capacity is a new word that we're using in the CASH language. We'll talk a little bit more about it in a second. CASH Creates is intended for the development of an artistic project not directly tied to a fully produced performance of a piece. This can include scripts, workshops, research, readings, etc. Requests under CASH Creates can also be for a capacity project that will improve the applicant's ability to create or present art. Requests for capacity should explain what this is, for example, professional development, a website, computer purchase, some sort of technology purchase, marketing initiatives, etc., and describe how it will improve the applicant's ability to create and present art. That meets the priority criteria below. So in other words, the marketing plan or the computer doesn't have to meet the priority criteria, but the work that results and is supported by this capacity building opportunity does. So CASH Creates awards are for $2,500. Again, there are no partial grants. And a special note, a CASH Creates award does not imply priority consideration for a CASH Performs award further down the path. CASH Performs is intended for a fully produced performance of an artistic project that is open to the public, or projects that support the creation of multiple works by multiple artists. These grants are for $5,000. Artists and organizations can apply for either a CASH Creates or CASH Performs in any given round. Priority will go to work that has an impact on the artist, the organization, the community, or the field. So the important part to note here is that it's work that meets that priority of impact on the artist, organization, community, or field. It's not that the grant will have an impact. We can assume that grants will have an impact on all applicants. It's what's the impact of the work on the artist. This is something that is taking you in a new direction, something that you haven't quite done before. Same for the organization. Perhaps it is an impact on a particular community, in which case you're going to want to articulate how it is that you have access to that community and what gives you, for lack of a better word, permission to present work on behalf of this community. Or the field. Perhaps this is work that our field in our region or in your particular region has not seen much of previously. Another priority criteria is that the work is innovative, takes creative risks with the potential of excellence. So again, it's doing something that is perhaps beyond your comfort zone, or perhaps what we are traditionally used to seeing in theater projects. And another priority criteria is that it will result in some kind of tangible creative activity. So there will be a something when it's done. Even a Cash Creates project, if it's research, the research will be done and will be resulting in some kind of work. If it's a script, if it's a performance, those speak for themselves. These priority criteria are not meant to be in any particular order, so we're not meaning to apply that any one is more important than another, and it could be that your project is incredibly strong in one of the priority criteria or in all three. It's best to make a case as to how you believe the project meets all three, and then allow the panel to make the decision as to how it meets the priority criteria. So that's the summary of those items. I look forward to talking to you more in another video soon.